Hello everyone, welcome to the brand new video from the Preacher. This video, as the title probably implies, is part 2 of the History of Christianity series. So last time, as I mentioned, this episode's primarily going to be about Emperor Constantine, or Constantine the Great as his full title was, who was the very first Christian emperor of Rome. So, to catch you up from last time, just to remind you, Constantine was not the emperor who legalized Christianity. That was Emperor Galerius. Hope that name is correct. But that Emperor Galerius, he did it to prevent issues in Rome. He wasn't a Christian. In fact, he was a pagan believer, just like a lot of other people in Rome. But he allowed Christianity because he hated the disputes that came over it. So he felt in his mind, if I just allowed Christianity, all these issues would just go away. So he legalized it, but it wasn't until several years later with Constantine in the early 300 AD who not only allowed Christianity, but he pushed Christianity as like the religion of Rome. You see, Constantine, very early in his life, before he became really this Christian type of guy, he claimed that he saw a shining cross in the heaven before a great battle, and he won the battle. It became this turning point in his life that he says that he converted to Christianity at that moment. So Constantine becomes emperor, and he says Christianity is going to be the religion of Rome. He pushed it out far and wide to the extent of the Roman border, the Roman Empire border at this time. So all of this sounds pretty great, actually. Up to this point, having an emperor that's a Christian and is pushing Christianity sounds really nice. However, there are some issues. You see, Constantine, as we learn from history, Constantine still held on to a lot of his paganistic beliefs. It's said that up till very soon before his death, he was still worshipping the sun god Sol. So this puts a little iffiness in this whole story of him being a Christian. So although he is claiming to be a Christian, he's also worshipping pagan beliefs. Another big thing that has caused great issues both then and now is the wide acceptance of Christianity makes it easy to be a bad Christian or a Christian just by name. You see, at this time, there's stories of Constantine paying people to become Christians, just handing out hundreds and hundreds of dollars in today's terms for people to go down and get baptized and call themselves Christians. And it was frowned upon to be anything but a Christian. So this is an issue. You see, pushing this ideology that everyone needs to be a Christian, it leads to some people just calling themselves Christians and not really following God, which we see nowadays in the modern society. The countries where they highly persecute Christians typically have less Christians, but the Christians that are there truly are following God and are willing to die for God. So think of that in the terms of this time period in Rome, where they just went from being persecuted to being the most loved thing in Rome, which, it's not very good for the message to get out. Another big thing, probably one why Constantine remains one of the bigger controversial people in Christian history, is the fact that he was the one who set up the Catholic Church. Kinda. You see, ask a Catholic, and they'll tell you that the Catholic Church actually started with Paul, who was the first pope, but Constantine was the first one to use the term Catholic Church, because Catholic literally means the universal church. Catholic Church is the universal church. It is the church for everybody on the planet. And that was his goal. He was going to build a single church where everyone on the planet could go to, which obviously did not go well because we have, several somewhat parts of Catholicism now, which doesn't really make sense because they're all the universal church. Oh well, I digress. The point is, he was the one who set up this church of Catholicism. And many people, both now and then, felt very split about it. You see, yeah, it's great to have this one universal church, but once again, now this is a time period when there's just suddenly a lot of new Christians just by name and nothing else. They're suffering from a lacking of quality in Christianity. And not only that, the people who are converting to Christianity just to get money, or they don't really understand it, they're just going for the name, they are still holding on to their old paganistic beliefs. And that's why I believe even to today, we can see several paganistic traditions in the Catholic Church that has not been done away with. So this is one big point that Constantine did that is highly controversial. It's this idea of the Catholic Church. Should one universal church been built? In my belief, Jesus said, go out and tell everyone about the church. Build churches everywhere. Tell everyone about God. Tell everyone about Jesus. So having just this one universal church could have both been good and bad, but it could only be good if the people who was leading it and was in it was good and truly wanted to follow God, which I believe these people were not. So the other big thing in Constantine's time was something called the Council of Nicaea. I'm going to go with that word, Nicaea. What it was is at this time there was this huge issue that arose. There was a man by the name of Arius, and you see Arius came along, and what he claimed was Jesus was made by God. So God was alone in the beginning, and then he made Jesus to be kind of above the angels but below God. He was the one who was going to be sent to earth and, change things. So that's an issue, because the Bible does teach about the Trinity, and a lot of church people supported the Trinity at that time. So at this time, Constantine sees this whole faulty ideology going around, and he says, well, we can't have that happening. We can't have disputes in, the Christian foundation, can we? So what happened was he got this council together. He called all these great bishops all throughout the lands, and they all come together, and they all sit and they discuss what are we going to do about this Arius man? What are we going to do about his ideology? Is it right? Is it wrong? And so basically Constantine said, take all you bishops, you're all going to get in here, we're all going to talk about that ideology about whether Jesus was God or he wasn't God, and you're going to come out with a decision. It's either going to be yes or no. So, as you can probably guess, the Council of Nicaea came out as, yes, God is Jesus, Jesus is God, God didn't form Jesus, Jesus was with God in the beginning, type of deal. Actually quite overwhelming, in fact. Arius had very, very few supporters at this time. So it's one of those things that many people claim that this is wrong because Constantine led it. However, you can see in history, Constantine had very little handhold in what went on at that council. It was mostly left up to the bishops. A lot of these bishops who were being persecuted before Christianity was allowed. So Constantine's reign remains one of the most controversial and most difficult things to pin down in Christian history, because yeah, he did some great things. He made it easy for people to become Christians. He pushed the limits of Christianity as to how far it was out there. People down in Africa, people down all throughout Europe was finally hearing about Christ and about God. He truly tried to make it easy for Christians. But he did do some bad things. You know, the Catholic Church was founded on what I believe pagan beliefs. You know, now there's all these subpar Christians popping up because he made it so easy. In fact, he was paying people to become Christians instead of actually teaching them what it took to be Christians. And history does show that he most likely held the majority of his paganistic beliefs up till his death. So, the idea of who Constantine was and where he stood with God remains controversial up till today. This is my belief on it. This is what I've read. This is what I honestly believe. I believe that Constantine truly did get saved, but in his ignorance, in his just new Christian ignorance, he tried to do so much good for Christianity that he ended up harming it in a big way. That may be wrong. He may have never been saved. He may have been doing it for the name or the power or just to stop disputes. Who knows why he did it? But I know that's what I believe. It may be wrong. Oh well. So this is basically the end of the video. Little points to point out. There's not going to be much Christian history for a good long time after this, because after Constantine, Catholics kind of control everything for about 1,000 years after this. They are the one and only Christian church really to be around. And I'll talk about that next time, mostly about the Protestant Reformation and whether God had his hand in that or not. But also, just pointing out a little side note at the end of this video, something that a lot of people seem confused on. A lot of people believe the Council of Nicaea chose which books of the Bible were, like, which books were going to be put into the Bible, and that's why a lot of people use, like, oh, the Bible is wrong because Constantine chose them. Well, this isn't true. As you can read in history, the Council of Nicaea didn't really have anything to do with the Bible, which books went into it. Actually, at the time of the Council of Nicaea, about 21 of the New Testament books were undisputed. They were seen as the words of God. And 10 more was still being looked upon, was still being studied about whether they was going to be added into the Bible or not. Other people say at this time, just because Constantine and all this, some books were kicked out, like the Gospel of Timothy, the Gospel of Paul, like the Gospel of everyone ever, you know, the book of whoever. There's a lot of them out there. There's dozens and dozens of these books. But even back then, the top theologians and historians at that time saw that they were pretty much all written by people who had no idea what they were talking about. They were typically liars trying to write books under the name of someone else. So I just thought to clear that up. So thank you for watching. Like, favorite, subscribe if you like the video. Come back for more. I hope to be doing another one of these next week. It is difficult, especially with Constantine in this video. It was difficult finding good historical backing in what I'm talking about. But I believe what I taught was historically backed up. But thank you for watching. Come back for more.